I think this is the easiest way if you want to remove the or replace the thermostat on this S60s, P2, V70, XC70 and so on. This is 2.4, 2.5, 5 cylinders. The idea is not to undo the two bolts. One is underneath that replace the whole housing. It's just to split the housing in two. You have somewhere, that's one bolt and there's another one. Once you get this pump out of the way, the access to the two bolts that secure the half of the housing, it's obvious. So it's T30, both of them. This is the lower one, the upper one I already did remove it. So here it goes. That's the half. Basically you buy the whole housing. Unfortunately Volvo does not sell separately. It's just the thermostat. It's a special thermostat unit. Maybe try Beck and Arley, but you are going to pay about $100 for the whole housing. And if you look, the thermostat has a very different design than the usual ones that you can replace by themselves. By the way, Volvo is making these thermostats for the diesel engines sold in Europe, Australia and so on. So maybe Google up go on eBay and search for the D5 thermostat. It seems to be very similar to this one, and this guy opens at, it's 90 degree. You see it right there in the corner, 90 Celsius, and you also can get the date. It's stamped. This is 2002, December 2002, so it's too old. Yeah, and you just replace that half side, the upper side. You get yours, so maybe just put the old one back in place. Remember to replace the gasket. Sometimes you don't get this gasket. I use RTV. I think Permatex makes sealant for especially for the water pump, but read the instructions the way you have to sit it there, and you get the access there. I don't think you have to remove the hose, but be sure to empty the coolant tank. When you lift this guy, always detach the sensor plug, because you are going to break the sensor if you don't unplug it. Also you have this collar on the hose. I like to put my collar this way. Sorry, the focusing is not working properly, because you can access it with a screwdriver from the side. If you put it the other way like that, it's not possible to access, but you can go for it with a 7mm wrench, I think. If you want also to replace the coolant sensor, you can get it with 19mm deep socket. Just unplug it and it fits perfectly nicely. This one is a ½ inch, you don't need a ½ inch, so it fits perfectly. That's how you get the thing out. But be really careful with this connector here, because the cable here crack and basically they just shear from there, and that's a problem. Sometimes the car won't start if you see the coolant needle doesn't move smoothly as the engine is warming up. But check these cables and go slowly, and this connector here, it's really annoying to undo. And by the way, when you replace the PCB, is a good time to replace the thermostat. These guys go bad 10 years, 12 years on. Notice how it sits in there. So it has kind of two legs which sit right there at the bottom, and or better perhaps, don't forget the gasket, obviously. You are better to sit it first here on the upper cover. So when you place the thermostat in there, be sure you place the legs like this, but check out this pin here, the burping pin. It looks like that. It just moves to let the air pass, and you need to rotate it to be at 12 o'clock. So you get the thermostat in there, and the pin sits right at the top. Really important, so you can burp it properly. Remove the air. Don't forget this step. And just slide it and make sure it sits with the two legs against that base. You'll see more or less on the opening, and then you have to press it against a little bit because of the spring. Basically, to get access, you need to undo the belt, the accessory serpentine belt, and sometimes you will see a small cup like this over the tensioner, which has a 14mm bolt. If you see this guy, just go with a maybe a long screwdriver or pry bar and just put it against it and smack it with a hammer. You don't need to replace it. Then maybe check my channel to see how to undo the tensioner. It's tricky also to replace the belt. Now to make space, you need to toss the water pump, power steering pump. It's better to undo this cover here over the modules, ACM. Carefully, this very important part is missing one here. You can also try to undo this cover carefully. It has a clip in the front. It's really hard to see on the sides. It's very important to move it back in place to seal at the bottom so it doesn't get humidity. Once you get that thing out of the way, you need to undo only 3 of the 4 bolts on the water pump. Usually it's 12 millimeter. You need to reach through the holes, so basically you don't need to undo the top one because it's just for the bracket. It's really tight in there. Usually I will just get my socket on the bolt. I loosen the bolt, I get my socket, and I just squeeze my hand. It's tight.